All right, you all. Welcome to Real Estate, Real Life, Real Talk, and Real Live with your host, Damon, the agent. I do apologize. I thought I was live on here for some reason, but I wasn't live for a couple of minutes, so I do apologize. I was live on TikTok, and I had went over some things, so I'm going to briefly go over them with you. First of all, thank you for joining me with Real Estate, Real Life, Real Talk, and Real Live with your host, Damon, the agent. You all know I always like to begin my segment with the latest real estate trends, what's going on in the wonderful world of real estate. So I'm going to begin. I was talking about the numbers in DC. Um, in the last, this is the last week, the week ending February 4th. There have been over 4,618 new listings, which was a 3.7% increase from the same period last year and a 19.5% surge from last week. This uptick in new listing activity suggests that the February market could be unusually busy. And also the medium sales price is $395 currently. This is for the second week in a row, which is 5.4% higher than the same week last year. But if any of you will recall, at the beginning of the year, the price was $380, which was an 8% increase from the previous year. That means the prices of houses are steadily going up. Now, also I want to mention that that's for the whole DC, Maryland, Virginia area. Now, closer to DC, there's a different number when it pertains to these. There's a different number when it pertains to these numbers. Now, the medium sales price in DC is $598. These houses have an average of 19 days on the market. These are for the better showing houses, the ones that shows very good to excellent condition. Any houses that need repairs, needs work, they're going to sit longer on the market. And a lot of times they are not going to get as much dollar amount, because even though most people feel as though that their house is better than the neighbor, in today's current market, buyers are actually, having more power. Now, someone asked me, what market are we in right now? We are still in a shifting market. It can be a seller's market depending on where you go. It can be a buyer's market depending on where you go. The demographics of this particular area vary. So because of that, it's really going to depend on where you're at. So a lot of times you really have to know the market and study the market, because like I've always say, the market changes every 3 to 6 months. And here's the thing, lately, the market has actually been changing every 2 weeks. The market is changing, just like the interest rate. Today's current interest rate is 6.96%, which hovers around 7%. Now, if we go back a couple of months, like in October, the interest rate was around 8%. Now, because the interest rate have gone down slightly around 7%, understand that the price of houses go up quicker and faster than interest rate go down. So, for example, when I just mentioned 5.4% from last week, understand that the interest rate right now being at 7% is not going to go down 5% to 2%. And even if it did do that, even if it did does that, the point is that I'm trying to make is that um even if it did go down, the prices of houses are going up. So when people are waiting for the price of the interest rate to go down, they're going to end up paying more later. That's why the saying goes, you buy real estate and then wait. You don't wait and then buy real estate. Okay? Because if you do that, you're going to end up paying more later. So I wanted to talk on that. So let me do right now my new weekly thing, which is called Spotlight. My weekly house spotlight. This week, home spotlight is 146 50th 36th Street Northeast. This is 2 unit buildings, people. So for any people who are looking to possibly invest or buy any multifamily units, these are 2. Right now, you can see the building on the left has 2 units. The building on the right has actually 4 units in it. There's 1 vacant unit in each building right now. The seller's going to leave it that way until he sells the unit. It does need some TLC in building on the left compared to the building on the right. I'm going to give you a couple of pictures of the unit on the left. That's the one that needs a lot of TLC. So the building on the right, this is one here. These pictures are when there was a tenant right here, but people have moved out. So this unit is actually vacant. The current price for both units combined, for both buildings combined, is $899. That price is negotiable. That price is negotiable. Nothing is set in stone with that price. That price is negotiable. It's $899. You get two buildings. A person can actually live in one unit, have the tenants paying the rent, which will make them live scot-free, as they also collect money from all the tenants. So that is this week house spotlight. I'm going to do a house spotlight every week for those who want to know. This is my listing of court. It's always going to be on my listing first. And then if I shall run out of listings, then I will spotlight a house of choice. Okay. All right. This week's spotlight is 146-150 36th Street Northeast. That's those two unit buildings. They are sold together. They're not sold separately because they're both are on one tax record. The owners in the process of separating that, so they could be sold separately. But if they are sold separately, it's going to be more. Now, right now, if a person wants to buy both, they will actually be getting a deal, because if they sell separately, they're going to be more. Meaning, if you wanted to buy them together, it's going to be more than what the price is right now. Again, the price is $899, and that price is negotiable. So let me go into my Q&A. Hold on for 1 second. Go into my Q&A. All right, Q&A, which is meaning my questions and answers. All right, let me begin right now. If you have any questions, please feel free to post them. Let me see if I got any questions right here. I want to make sure I don't miss any. Okay, the first question right here says, if a realtor moves to another real estate company and has my listing, what happens to the listing? If a realtor moves to another real estate company and has my listing, I'm assuming their house listed, what happens to the listings? Many things can happen. In many cases, the listing can transfer with the realtor, or it will remain at that brokerage that the realtor was with. And then once it is sold, sometimes when it remains with that brokerage, the broker there will assign someone, if not themselves, to actually deal with that listing. So that's what normally happens when a realtor moves to another real estate company. The house that they have listed either transfer with them or it remains at that company, unless the realtor withdraw the listings prior to leaving that company and then take it over with them to another company. I've actually done that in the past. I was with a company called Exit. I went to Remax. So I took my houses, my listings. I withdrew my listings. I explained to my clients, I'm changing company. So I withdrew my listings. And then when I withdrew my listings, I had them sign a new listing agreement when I went to the new company, when I went to Remax. So that's what can happen, or it can transfer with them, or it would remain the same. It just really depends on the communication you have with that realtor to actually see what they plan on doing. So that's what happens with that. Another question is current housing market, I'm sorry, wrong. That's not the question. Okay, this question, and this is a good question. Someone said, is it easier to purchase a newly constructed home or previously lived in home? Is it easier to purchase a newly constructed home or previously lived in home? Now, this question right here comes with many layers, because that's really going to depend. For example, if you purchasing, like, a new construction is always sweet because it's new. There's nothing like new, but some new constructions still have some issues going on with it. So do not think that just because you're buying new that you may not have any problems anytime soon. I will always say that that's going to vary. Now, if you like new, you don't want anybody who previously lived in the house, then yes, a new construction would be easier. Now, if you prefer, like, to have something that's a little bit older, but in some cases they can have a renovated home that has been updated, remodeled, and buying that can sometimes be easier. The difficulty comes with a house that's been lived in. It depends on if the seller is still living in it. Sometimes when sellers still live in a house, they make it harder when it's to show. Sometimes even when settlement does occur or close to a settlement, they're supposed to be out by a certain date. And that's why sometimes you will have these things called rent back. Rent back is basically when the buyer purchased the home and then the seller who's selling the home to the buyer will rent the house back from the buyer a certain number of days. That sometimes can be an inconvenience. So if a person wants to buy a house, move in a home without having those type of problems, and they know that the seller's still living in the house, then buying new construction will definitely be easier than buying one that's previously lived in. But it's going to vary depending on circumstances and situations. So depends on what the buyer wants. If they want newly construction, if they want updated, if they want excellent condition, then new construction is the way to go. If they don't mind, what I'm saying, having a little, heritage with the home as far as, the house, depending on the location, then that can be good too, because there are plenty of houses that were lived in that no one is living in, meaning that they're vacant. So when they're going to market, they're completely vacant. So when you're talking about easier, are you talking about easier when it pertains to financing, or you're talking about easier when it pertains to just the availability? Because as when it pertains to the availability, new construction can sometimes be easier if the homes are already built. But if it's not built, you have to understand with new construction, there's a waiting period. Sometimes depending on if they begin construction or not, if they have, sometimes you may have to wait 6 months, 8 months on that. So that's not sometimes as easy because of the waiting period. With the house that's already lived in, all you have to do is get your loan process and then you can move in. So sometimes that is easier. So when it pertains to easier, just going to depend on what point that you're coming from when you're talking about easier. So that's a great question. I thank you for that question. So I'm going to go into my next segment, which is going to be my topic of today. Hold on. Okay. All right. My topic of today is going to be about sibling rivalry. Sibling rivalry. I want to talk about this because I feel as though it's detrimental to a lot of people who have brothers or sisters out there, and you have bad bloods with your siblings for various reasons. A lot of times the reasons are warrant. Sometimes unfortunately we have people in our family who treat us worse than an enemy would treat us, and they're closer to us. But sometimes the sibling rivalry can be detrimental to your parents. I say that to say this: I've seen a lot of people lately who are taking care of their parents. Parents are getting older, everyone's getting older. So there are a lot of people who are looking after their parents, their mother more so than their father, because 9 times out of 10 mothers have taken care of their kids more so than the fathers. So you have a lot of people looking after their parents. In some cases, when there are multiple children, you may have one or two who are looking after their parent, while the other ones are nowhere to be seen or heard from. Sometimes it's because they having ill feelings towards their parents, and sometimes because they having ill feelings towards their brother or sister. As much as sometimes we don't like our siblings, if something was to happen to your sibling, you will feel some type of way. I say this to say that, many of you know my story, but some people don't. I'm the youngest of 4 boys. None of my 3 brothers are alive. All 3 of them passed away, 2 to gun violence in DC. I recall one of my brothers who I was very close with. Me and him, we were kind of like beefing with each other. We weren't speaking to each other. And I remember he came to my house. He came to my house. He knocked on my door. I looked at him. We ain't say nothing, but he stuck his hand out to me. And then we shook. And then when we shook hands, it was like our beef was over. Now, that same night when he left out, I never saw him again because he got killed in DC. I always wondered that if he never stopped past my place to even speak to me or to just squash the beef between us, how would I have felt the rest of my life knowing that I was mad at my brother and we didn't squash our beef? And sometimes the things that we're mad about is petty. We don't even realize how petty it is. See, a lot of times sibling rivalries can be resolved with just having a good conversation. But the problem is, unfortunately, a lot of us don't speak to each other when we're mad. We don't want to talk to family when we're mad because that's how we deal with things. We deal with things by shutting down, by not being bothered, by not dealing with it at all. But really, we're not dealing with it. This is part of the reason why a lot of us still need therapy and counseling, because of the after effects of slavery has passed on from generation to generation to generation. And a lot of people don't even realize it because we take a lot of our stuff off. We'll be like, oh, I'm not going to deal with it. I'm just going to cut them off. I don't want to speak to them. That's why sometimes when people have cookouts or when they have family reunions, they always want to know who's going to be there. And they're not showing up if such and such is there because of these ill feelings that people tend to have for people in their family. And I'm talking about siblings in particular right now. So I say this to say that a lot of times, if people would step outside of themselves and look at their parents and put themselves in their parents' shoes, no parents wants to see their kids arguing or fighting or fussing. But unfortunately, it happens all the time. No parent wants to see, because you all are piece and part of your parent. And it's like your parent is fighting themselves when they look at their kids sometimes. But sometimes we get to that point that we don't care. See, the one of our downfalls is we got a lot of bad attitudes, the way that we look at stuff, our mindset. Our mindset is terrible. We got this nonchalant, I don't give a F attitude towards everything and everybody. But to be honest, that is very detrimental to you. That's why you never grow. That's why you never get mature. That's why you don't get a lot of blessings that you feel like you should have in this world. You look at other people and you wonder why they got things and you ain't got things. But a lot of times you don't have things not because you're not capable of not having things. You don't have things because of the way your feelings and your heart is. You're wrong in your behavior. You're selfish in your behavior. You're mean and spiteful in your behavior, and you don't even realize it. Being mad at your siblings ain't hurt nobody but you, because it's blocking your blessings. If you speak to them, that won't hurt. But my point, excuse my point is, we hold grudges for so long in our life that sometimes it don't take till people get on their deathbeds that they all of a sudden want to say something, that they want to apologize. Why wait your entire life to say something then when you can say something now? So only thing I have to say is, when it pertains to sibling rivalries, please squash your beef with your brothers or your sisters, because in this world, this cruel world we living in, you all are really all that you have. You all are really all that you have. And if you realize that we are much stronger in numbers together than we'll ever be apart, you'll understand the blessings and growth that will be on your life. That's why so many people can do well by themselves, which is good and fine. You're content, but you'll do so much better with others, especially your family. So I just wanted to talk about that sibling rivalry, because I think that a lot of us need to really look at ourselves. So I hope that that got through to somebody, and I'm going to come back with a recap. All right, y'all. Real quick, I'm gonna do a recap. First of all, let me just say, please follow me on all my social media platforms. That is on Facebook, TikTok, LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, and Snapchat, and yes, and Pinterest. I'm sorry. So, real quick, my recap is the market. The market is still shifting, you all. But houses are slightly going up. Interest rates are slightly going down. The number of showings has increased in the last week. What are you going to do? It's better to buy now and wait to refinance, and also to cash in on the equity later on, than to try to wait and then buy, because later on you're going to be regretful. Think about a lot of people who are regretful and wish they would have bought then, but they didn't. Now they buying later. So I say that to say is, if you're planning on owning a piece of real estate, you need to get in the game. Get in the game. You can always reach out to me. My number is 202 618 1382. My website is damontheagent.com. It has all of my information. Also, you all can find me on all the social media. Y'all can just send me a message. And then also I went over the quick Q&As, which it was real good. One of the questions was, which one should you buy? Which is easiest? New construction or someone that someone lived in? And again, depends on what perspective you're looking at. Are you looking from a financial perspective? Are you looking at how quickly you can move into something? Are you looking at the condition of the property? Because they both have their pros and cons. So I would need to know more about that, but I did elaborate a little bit about that. And then again, I ended with sibling rivalries. Please love your brothers and sisters because they can be taken away. All three of my brothers are gone, like I mentioned before. I would do anything if they were here. I wish that they were here. You know, you don't realize how badly you miss someone until they're gone. Please don't let something tragic have to happen for you to realize how much you miss someone, especially your brothers or your sisters. So I just wanted to say that. Thank you all for joining me. I will see you all next week, same time, same station.